Welcome, friends and foes of the MMA Huddle live chat. Thank you all for joining in. If you're going to be joining late or if you're going to be tuning in shortly, thank you so much here. So we're going to talk about the UFC being cancelled. Huge moment, huge thing to talk about. I'd love to get your opinions. So I'm going to wait here till folks join in. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. UFC being cancelled. It's been announced now. Obviously, London at the weekend was talked about being cancelled and relocated to the USA. And as we all saw, they had to move matches around. They put the email out claiming, or let's rephrase that, looking for fighters to come along and step up onto their roster, even if they're not signed up. So we'll be talking about that. Also, we'll be talking about the announcement of the further cards being kind of closed off. The Ngannou Rosenstruck card. You've got the Overeem Harris card, and potentially Khabib Ferguson for the fifth time, maybe being rescheduled. So I'd love to know your thoughts on what's happening lately with the coronavirus, which is it's an epidemic. It's something new. It's something we have to look at and something we have to take seriously. So I'm going to do a couple of points of view. I'm going to give devil's advocate, so to speak. Look, personally, I think Dana White should have admitted it, put his hands up and said, look, there's no point in putting the fighters through the stress of whether known if they're going to fight or not with the training camps, spending money on the training camps, the travel, the weight cut, accumulation of things that Dana White's never had to put himself through in the past ever before. So he's not really ever been in a fighter's shoes. He as a promoter, he's all about profit, money in his pocket, the bottom dollar. That's all Dana White is about. Hence why I did the Brazilian card behind closed doors. And then it got released as well about the Brazilian card that none of the fighters were being checked as well for the coronavirus, which I found perplexing. I would have thought they would have had medical staff in to check everyone, and not only just the fighters, the staff. So what do you got to look at from that perspective? I was thinking the fighters, they've got the cornermen, they've got the staff there as well. You've got all the people who are doing security, UFC staff. It not only can just affect one person, it can affect multiple people. So this is something we need to look out for. Now, as you can guess, there isn't going to be a predictions video for this week because there's nothing to predict. So we'll take this as a clean sweep for me and Will. So, ladies and gentlemen, sorry that we're not going to be doing the live stream, the predictions videos for the next 3 weeks, it seems. But what I will do, if you'd like to join in the comment section, please give us your thoughts on this cancellation of the UFC, about the UFC kind of having to put a stop on everything. I'd love to know what your thoughts are about Cage Warriors announcing with Graham Boylan saying that he is looking to try and tie up a couple of fights, which he has so far. He's got Phillips and Dusko, and he's also just announced before Darren Stewart against Fabianski. So he's got two fights added to his Cage Warriors card. Now, that is going to be questionable if that happens. It was due to be at the Indigo on Friday, to which now he's announced it's moved to Manchester. So now not only has Mason Jones, Joe Glockland, you've had Paddy Pimblett get change of opponents, not once for Mason and Joe, but twice. And then they've had the arena changes. Again, it's an added stress on this matter. So it's something to look at. So I was a bit frustrated with Dana White. I thought it was a bit irresponsible of him as an owner of a company. You know, I know he likes to be the face of the brand. I know he likes to be the number one and he looks to be the top cheese. But at the same time, you have to look at it from an employee standpoint. Fighters are cutting weight. Fighters, when they're malnourished cutting weight, are more susceptible to illnesses. So they could have easily caught that coronavirus, then passed on to their coaches and staff, then passed on to family members. And you've got to remember the coronavirus it's not that it will kill everyone. It's that there's people with underlying health problems or the people that are vulnerable. So many fighters will have family members who have not got the best health. They might have elder members in their family. It's just not something worth doing. But Dana White pushed on. He said, we're going to do this for the fans, etc. I don't think the fans would have argued. No fan's going to sit here and argue that there's no fights on. There's no football. There's no cricket. There's no golf. I think the darts is stopping. What else is there sports-wise? I probably imagine ice hockey's not on, right? Basketball, there you go. The NBA stopped as well. I was having a brewski. Sorry, folks. look, there is a lot going on with the UFC behind the scenes. I'm sure they tried to work out everything they could. I thought they were going to go to Russia. I don't know what you guys thought. Guys, if you're gutted about this cancellation, please let me know in the comment section or in the live chat. I think it's a live chat. Yeah, give us a thoughts on the live chat. Let us know who's listening. Tune in, guys, and also give us a like on the video as well. Your support has been huge on the channel. Me and Will are hugely mate, they're cancelled. Well, cancelled / postponed, if you want to word it another way. So the UFC London card, ladies and gentlemen, UFC betting experience. He follows on the comments and chats on. Credit to your brother. Thank you for tuning in. Yeah, they have been postponed, my friend. You've had the London card, the Ngannou and the Rosenstruck card has been postponed, and you've had obviously the Overeem and Harris have been all 3 cards have been postponed. Obviously, Dana White didn't confirm if the April 18th card for the Khabib Ferguson one was going to be postponed, because they will do everything they can to keep that, because it will actually benefit Dana with the pay-per-view and the money, etc. And last thing they want to do is postpone it. If they could maybe move it a week, there's a high chance they could do that. I actually think it benefits the UFC having the UFC Khabib and Ferguson card being the only card in the next few weeks. And now I don't know how many folks here listening used to watch the UFC like I did years and years and years ago. Now, if you did watch it years ago, you'll know that the UFC used to put on cards not as frequent as they do now, and there was actually a build-up and excitement. You looked forward to the cards coming up because you had the anticipation for weeks on end. You would watch interviews or build-ups like the countdown stuff and all things like that. And that build up and excitement, and just you would talk to your friends about it for weeks, and you were just building. This could be the case for the UFC. They might get a bonanza pay-per-view buy with this, because everyone will be dying to watch fights again. The pay-per-view itself with the card the fight between Khabib and Ferguson cancelled 4 times so far. They don't want to cancel it a 5th, because you might as well just say to the pair of them, we're just going to play the game on EA Sports and we'll just go off that. Whatever the simulation says, we'll take that as a winner, because we're sick of making this fight. yeah, it is bad. Hey, look, it's bad for any bettors. I know a couple of guys who obviously they bet big on the UFC, and it's kind of a thing that is part of their income. So I understand it when this unpredicted scenario happens, you can make a loss. I would suggest, obviously, be more cautious with your monies for the next few weeks, and also maybe in the future keep a little bit side in the pot for these accidents that can happen. It's not the best situation, brother, but look, I'd love to know what your thoughts are with what the UFC should be doing, because, for example, they haven't announced if they're paying the fighters for any of their fight camps. If you look at Bellator, Scott Coker cancelled the event at the weekend just gone, and then announced that the fighters got their pay. They got compensated. He said they got compensated. He didn't release. He was paying their pocket, so to speak, paying their fight pay. I think it was either Josh Thompson or someone else stated it. I can't remember now. Folks, you might be able to tell me at home, but Scott Coker, I know he's owned by another company's owned by Viacom, billionaire company. But if you look at Dana White, minted. UFC is minted. $1 billion company. Just pay the fighters their pay. Just pay the fighters. The camp costs, everything. I've not heard anything yet about them getting covered for their loss of earnings, so to speak, because obviously they rely on the money's coming in. That's one of the reasons where I don't know what your thoughts are, folks. UFC is obviously a monopoly. Should there be a fighter union? So when something, I'm not saying we're going to get another coronavirus 20 or something or 21 coming along each year, but when something like this happens, you make yourself wonder if they had a union, they could. It is, brother. It is crazy. It is crazy. But like, look at all the other sports. If you're into the NFL, there's a lot of trades going on right now. So it's the free agency. So a lot of things are going down. Arizona Cardinals have made a big move. So Will is going to be ecstatic right now. Big move, big players moving. So we've got rid of running back, got a big player in. But yeah, bro, it is crazy stuff. You got to think, could it be extended on? This is only postponed. They haven't announced any other cards because obviously Ohio, etc. Here we go. After 249 won't be the same without. It would be a loss F. Smith 99, brother, it would be a loss for them to not have a crowd. I agree. I think they need a crowd for this event because having a crowd there is going to be huge. Not only will they have the atmosphere, you noticed it. I don't know how many of you noticed it for the card at the weekend. It's just not the same because you do when you see a moment, you see that oh shit moment, the whole crowd goes up because you're going up at home. It does add to it. In a fighter, you hear the crowd going wild. You got Bruce Buffer on the microphone. The crowd goes electric. It's just insane. It's just an adrenaline that goes through you. If you've ever experienced a UFC card, folks, if you haven't, I implore you to at some point experience it. I was due to go down to UFC London this weekend. I am crushed that I'm not going to UFC London. I'm going to be, provided everything's all good for August, I'm going to be hitting UFC Dublin. So if anyone's going to be going to UFC Dublin, join me. If you see me and Will, have a chat of us. We'd love to meet everyone here. Of course, if you're not going to be at it, feel free to tune into the podcast. We'll be posting out lots of things. It's Khabib Ferguson Saga, the weirdest. It is, yeah, channel MMA with Jay. Give him a follow and subscribe, folks. And give Jay a little follow there, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, it is crazy. It's the weirdest scenario of MMA. I think Khabib and Ferguson is got to be one of the most booked fights that never happened. I think Dana's even said, if this doesn't happen now, you've got to stop. You've got to give up that. I would maybe even think, let's do a last minute booking for the pair of them. Just say to them, keep fit. We're going to stick you on a card. We're not going to tell you when. And just put them in. Just put them in. Call them on the Sunday. Say, look, you're coming to this event. Won't have a clue. Yeah, you won't know how to jump over the cage too. But let's look at the question here with Khabib and Ferguson. See now we've got comments about that particular bout. Has anyone got any comments about who they think would win? Because we've got to admit, Tony Ferguson, he's got great cage warriors still there. It is at the moment, Don. It is at the moment because the UK government, if ladies and gentlemen haven't listened to the news about the UK government, it's not easy to listen to Boris Johnson. I have to say, he is a wet flannel. And to be honest with you, he's got a face only a mother could love. She used to put him in front of the mirror as punishment. That's how ugly he is. But I would say with the UK not banning gatherings of X amount of people, cage warriors can just get away with it. One of the things you got to look at is with gatherings and events. If you've got a fight card on, let's say you have a 13 fight card. That's 26 fighters. Then you've got to take into account the tournament. So if they've got 2 tournament each as well, and then you've got to take into account the staffing for the TV side of things. You've got the commentary team. You've got the cut men. You've got you've just got there'll be other staff. They'll have other general staff there for cage warriors. So all of that adds up to well over 50 or 100 people. So if Boris this week is probably going to do another announcement during the course of the week, probably on Wednesday or Thursday, he may stop or put a ban on large gatherings. He hasn't done it yet. He suggested it, which is perplexing because on Thursday, the UK government made a simple thing of wash your hands, you'll be grand. And then it all went tits up in a few days because they didn't realize how quick the numbers would go up. So I suspect we might see a request, let's say, from the government to stop any kind of gathering. So Cage Warriors might not happen in Manchester. Now, credit to Graham Boylan and the UFC. They're working together to try and get some of the guys' fights. I don't have a go at that. Like I said before, if you haven't listened, if you only just joined in for the last few minutes, Phillips and Dusko is on the Cage Warriors card, and Stewart and Fabianski has been added to that card too. So 2 fights that were Stewart and Fabianski weren't due to fight each other, but they've been moved over there. That's a tough fighting bet wise. My head says Khabib, but in the fan of me, it says Tony would destroy Khabib's face of elbows. That is the issue or conundrum you have with the Khabib and Ferguson fight. If you look back at Kevin Lee against Tony Ferguson, it's probably one of the better tapes to get an idea of Kevin Lee's wrestling. Got on top, mounted Tony Ferguson, and obviously had the staph infection coming the second round. He didn't have much in the tank left. Khabib, he's got a better gas tank, obviously. Fingers crossed he doesn't have staph infection. He can wrestle very well. We've seen how strong Khabib can be in fights and how just exhausting he is on guys. Can Khabib be smart with the takedowns? Can he get past the guard of Tony Ferguson? That is one of the worst things you've got to get past with Tony Ferguson. It's his guards. I cannot find any bookie with odds on Cage Warriors. I'm not sure which bookies Don will have Cage Warriors. You might see Paddy Power with it. Bet365. Bloody Nora. And I will try and find out if there's any more. There you go, Bet365 there. So there might be other guys. I think there's one or two that do the Cage Warriors bet. And I use Paddy Power myself, but there might be other betting sites to use. I'll even ask Will to maybe put a comment in below into this group, into this video to say which challenge you can go on to. But yeah, it's a big question. Can Khabib avoid the guillotine or Darce chokes that Tony Ferguson is very good with? Can he avoid the damage of the cuts that Tony Ferguson can throw with the elbows from his guard and on the feet? Because we saw in the Conor fight, if you can negate some of the takedowns from Khabib, he does get a little bit tired. It is exhausting. Obviously, it's hard work. But then if Tony Ferguson sometimes a bit happy for to go on his back because he's happy just to use his jiu-jitsu, I'd like to see him fight a bit harder on the ground. I'd like to see Tony Ferguson defend Khabib a bit more. I'm still up and down. My big red flag, and I suggest all you do is watching that Kevin Lee fight where Khabib could get Ferguson down and could control him. It's doing it for 5 rounds. Like Charles Oliveira, he's got the jiu-jitsu in there to pop out a guillotine. He's got the moves in there to potentially get something. Thank you all for joining in so far. If you haven't already, give us a comments below about the UFC cancellation. That is what we are talking about, and amongst other things as well. It's an open chat. I'm happy to talk about anything MMA related or not MMA related. We're talking about the coronavirus having an effect now on the UFC. Not only did we talk. We talked previously about how we've seen how it's previously affected like KSW and other promotions, and we've not heard. We heard Bellator paid their fighters who are due on a fight on that card, but we haven't heard anything from the UFC side, which I don't know what your thoughts are, folks, on UFC not maybe potentially paying their fighters who weren't fighting, who have been put in a 6, 8, 12-week fight camp, who have invested money, invested time away from their family and friends to get ready for this UFC London card. I just don't want to see Fergie on his back yet. I see a close pick, but I've got Ferg with damage. Okay, interesting. It is. Have we seen Khabib cut yet? Has Khabib ever been cut in a UFC fight? I don't think I've ever seen Khabib cut off the top of my head. So that would be a peril for Khabib if he gets cut. How does he react? How does he handle damage like that? How does he take maybe getting the elbows and just having this guy relentlessly attacking you when you're on top as well? Whereas Khabib used to be the dominant one. If you look at the Michael Johnson fight where he was able to pin him down and put the punches in and just basically telling him to give up. It is strange. So, like I said, give us your thoughts on the UFC cancellations of fights. What you think if the coronavirus is going to keep going potentially? Do you think Khabib and Ferguson will happen? Cage Warriors obviously moving to Manchester, taking a couple of the UFC fighters to put onto their card. I was surprised they maybe didn't try to match Molly McCann up with someone, but then again, the Cage Warriors thing, they need a UK-based fighter to come in, so it was a bit difficult for Molly McCann to get the fight there because she has been signed up with them previously. She'll be there for Paddy Pimblett, I imagine, cornering with Paddy. So yeah, there's a lot of questions in this fight card. There's a lot going on, as you can all see. So I am super interested to see how this goes. Ladies and gentlemen, I am just going to quickly, just give me this. I'm just going to check the audio. There we go. Getting that audio off. That's better. Make sure that audio is fine. It's perplexing to see what's going to happen with the UFC in the next few weeks. Like I said, it's fight night cards that he's stopped, but the pay-per-view one, he's a bit up in the air because of all that's the money maker for him. He will happily negate those fight night cards for the potential 30, 40, 50, 60 million he could make from the pay-per-view card of the Khabib one. And like I said earlier, I think he can make money out of this. I think he can make money a lot more than he would have if he had. I don't know how all you feel about watching fight night cards. There is quite a lot of them. Johnny Walker is possibly the most overrated fighter in UFC. Johnny Walker, most overrated fighter in UFC history. I don't know about overrated. I think there's other guys that could fall in that bracket. Ben Askren came along. There was a lot of hype behind Ben Askren due to the fact of his skill set and his and what he can do. And Hector Lombard is another good example of that. He was Will Brooks is another one who came along. If I think about a couple of guys just off the top of my head that came along to the UFC that didn't quite live up to that hype. There's other fighters as well. I just can't think off the top of my head. I don't know if anyone else at home can think of any fighters they can recall that came to the UFC that didn't quite make it. Oh gosh, what's his name? Heavyweight fighter Todd Duffy. Todd Duffy. Now, if you want to talk about a flop, Todd Duffy, UFC hyped him up to be the bee's knees, and he flopped. Literally flopped because he got sparked out. That Frank Mir knockout was ruthless. That was pretty. He is good and well for 7 minutes, and then he just gets sloppy. Yeah, Sage Northcutt. Yeah, that was he was hyped as well, and a lot of the things you find with these guys that get hyped, it's a UFC. It's the UFC's fault, let's say, because they promote guys too quick. They push them too quick because they try to make star power, make as much money as they can. They milk the cows and then off they go. With Sage Northcutt, here's another example of you should have kept him on the regional scene, let him build up his skill set, and then bring him into the UFC. Just keep tabs on him. Kind of like what Dana's doing with the Dana White looking for a fighter or Dana White Contender Series. He'll, he might see guys that are potentially there, then he'll keep tabs on them. And Sage. I think Johnny Walker though, because I think he's training at TriStar. So, ladies and gentlemen, if he's training at TriStar, you've got Faraz. He's patient. He will get discipline into Johnny Walker. He will get the best skill set that Johnny Walker has. He'll make use of it. He'll make use of his weapons, his utility, whether it be his height, his length, or anything like that. So that is something we've got to take into consideration. That Faraz Zahabi is smart. He's a very, very shrewd coach. I would like to see maybe Johnny Walker stay there. Johnny Walker, I've seen he's been dotting around different gyms. He might maybe be doing well to maybe stay somewhere for like a year. If he wants to move elsewhere, he could. But if you can think of any other fighters that you deem as overrated in the UFC when they came in, comment below, join in the conversation, ladies and gentlemen. It's an open forum. This is a MMA community, is what we're trying to build here at the MMA Huddle. I want all of you to join in because it's a family. It's positive vibes. It's all good. It's all good communication going on. There's no right or wrong. It's an opinion. We're allowed to have opinions, and it's okay to be different of opinions as well. So please hit the subscribe button if you've not joined the podcast already, because I will be in between these 3 weeks. I'll look to do some more live streams just to keep things going, to get you guys talking, get everyone engaged in the fight game. And I'll also try and maybe jump in to get some interviews with some fighters. If there's any fighters in particular that you'd like to maybe hear about, any up and comers, again, throw a comment in the comment section there. Let us know if there's any fighters in particular that you're interested in or maybe like to hear from. I will reach out to as many as I can. I will get as many as I can on. As you can see, I didn't do that many live streams recently because I was doing so many interviews, which I have posted, UFC ones, Cage Warriors. It was just the timing of getting all them done. I've got my first, I'll rephrase that. I'm going back into the cage myself after a few years out of injuries. So I've had to be training, interviews. I just haven't had time for the live chat. So it's nice to be back in here doing live chats with you. I will make a conscious effort to try and get a few more in, especially in this little break we've got up for the first 3 weeks or so. So me and Will are devastated. We are gutted. And with the both of us not having to do the breakdowns, I'll see if I can sort out having Will as a two-way. I'm not sure how I can do a two-way on this because the internet is a pain in the arse, but I will do my best to. So if I can have Will join me as well for this, it would be a right barrel of laughs to have you all join in with me and Will. But yeah, give us some thoughts on the coronavirus stopping the UFC and how you maybe think kind of approached it really, and how Dana White's kind of thoughts were. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. Some of the questions there about most overrated fighters, or the Khabib and Ferguson fight. Has anyone got any early predictions? Obviously, we're weeks out, hours of tape study away. There's a lot of tape study for Tony Ferguson. That dude he's been pushing his way for a long time to get the title fight. So kudos to the guy, man. I take a lot of time. Yeah, looking forward to seeing Molly. Yeah. I was good with that. Yeah, I will. I was meant to be interviewing at Molly after Dublin the Bellator Dublin card. She was cornering Leah McCourt, and I was meant to be interviewing her on a Sunday, but I think it was a late flight going, or no, early. I think there was something issue with the travel getting back to UK. So that kind of went out the window. So I will look to get Molly on. We will be looking to do an interview together in some point. So Molly McCann is on my list of fighters to get onto the podcast. It is one of them ones where I do miss some fighters because of times where we work and their free time, and obviously times in the US, especially with US fighters, I've got to take into consideration the time zones. So I do what I can. So Molly McCann, I will put her on the list. All right. So don't worry. I will do my best to get her, probably actually try and get her this week, only because I'll see if I can communicate with her just to talk about obviously not making a fight and what her plans are. But she's probably a bit tied up with Paddy, getting Paddy ready for his fight. Paddy Pimblett returning. It's a big moment for Paddy as well, because he's kind of always been on the cusp of that UFC potential, jump, and he just keeps falling short, whether it be the sore back, the hand injuries and stuff like that. He's almost there, and he just sometimes pulls back. And I think the UFC are happy to want to just take him on because of the personality that he brings. So he brings the numbers. And he's also, you got to remember, he's actually making quite a bit of money with Cage Warriors, the kind of contract that he signed with them. He's making good wedge. So that'll be interesting. Chris Fishgold as well with same gym, Molly and Paddy and Chris Fishgold. Chris Fishgold has got a fight coming up. I was messaging him the other day, and he wants me to sort out an interview and get to chatting to him. So I'll be having a Chris Fishgold interview coming up. Definitely be doing it over the next 3 weeks while there's no fights on, just to give you guys all a bit of content, because we've got no fights on. We might as well get some content on, whether it be interviews, live chats, so you can all join in. There's a few of you more on. Ladies and gentlemen, if you just joined us, we were just talking about the coronavirus causing the UFC to kind of postpone or cancel events. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. Also, some of the comments below talking about Khabib and Ferguson. I'd like to know your thoughts on the prediction of that. And also, joining the conversation, you got any questions or any things you want to talk about the MMA scene, or if there's any fighters you'd like me to try and interview, or coaches. I will interview coaches, promoters, fighters. I'm not a snob when it comes to that. I used to have a podcast called John and Mike's MMA Corner a little while back, and I've interviewed probably best part of 300 people now. Art Davey was one of them, who was one of the co-founders of the UFC. Love talking to that gentleman on New Year's Eve. It was a blast. I had MMA, really, because there's a lot of things going on. Like I say, the Bellator thing was something that spoke volume. Something about Scott Coker, where he's just a good soul person, where he paid the fighters their fight pay for the card that got cancelled. And I thought that was a beautiful gesture, because it's not easy to just do that. And I thought Dana White's not done it yet. And I thought, Dana, you fly on a private jet to each event, where fighters have to sometimes do a GoFundMe to get a second cornerman in coach on a normal flight, on a domestic flight. So it is a bit frustrating. Christy Clifford, thank you very much for the comment. Here we go. If the matchup was to happen, who wins? Rhys McKee or Paddy Pimblett? Ooh, that's filthy, isn't it? Well, fantasy matchup. Okay. Rhys McKee has obviously gone up to 170, and he is going to be fight for the vacant 170 belt. But we'll do an imaginary fight where Rhys McKee goes back down to 155. I'm going to go with Rhys McKee on it. I am. I think the height and the length that Rhys McKee has is a big factor in the fight game. I think Paddy's stand-up is something that he needs a lot of work on, big time. Paddy Pemblett's striking is not quite there yet. He relies a lot on the clinch. Nice to get the clinch so he can go for trips, takedowns, or jump into submissions to fight from his guard, or obviously try and take positions from there. But I would actually probably go for Rhys McKee off the top of my head. I've seen the holes in Paddy's game. I'm sure he's worked on those holes in his game, and he's tried to work over time with them. But I would definitely go for Rhys McKee on that one. It's not a right or wrong answer. It's just a quick analysis. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't agree, it's okay. Here we go. So CB, there we go. Craft, here we go. Can you arrange an interview with an MMA judge? Okay, cool. I have done this before with Ben Cartledge, UFC. He's done every promotion you can imagine. Cage Warriors a lot. Ben Cartledge, I love that human being to death. He actually has his own YouTube channel called One Credit Classics, where he plays like old school 90s games, completes the game in one credit all the way through. He's got tons of stuff like Mario, all the classic games. Honestly, Golden Axe, anything you can think of. So I do actually implore you to go over there and watch it. It's fantastic. But yeah, I had done Ben in my old podcast, like I said before, the John and Mike's MMA Corner. The YouTube channel's still there, so all the interviews are there. I might try and get Ben back on again, if I'm honest with you, just for an update, because since we last spoke, the rules have changed. I've had Mark Goddard on as well in the past, and again, rules have changed since then. The updated rules have changed. I had Big John McCarthy as well. So if you would like me to try and get Ben Cartledge on, I will try and do that my best, my friend. I'll also try and get Mark Goddard or Big John McCarthy. If you've got a preference, or I can actually do Leon Roberts as well. So if you let me know if you'd like any three of those referees as well, to give a referee's perspective, let me know. I'll happily try and get any of those three guys on I've just mentioned. Which round do you predict Hermansson to KO Weidman in? F. Smith 99. I'm going to be honest. I think that's a horrible match for Chris Weidman. Chris Weidman has not, if you look at his record, he's not had a good time since winning that belt. That has been a curse to him winning that title. He went to go 205, it didn't work out too well. I don't think he looked too great at 205. 185 is obviously a big cut for him, and that's why he thought 205 would suit him. But I think the problem with Weidman is in the UFC, they're just giving him these big names straight away. And I'm like, I know it's not boxing. And I'm not saying the UFC should be boxing. And there's not really an easy fight. But there are more preferential fights out there for Chris Weidman that could help him get back up there again, potentially to not contend for a title, let's say, but could certainly get him back in the mix of being a kind of contender and getting a bit of momentum back on his belt. Hermansson's horrible because Hermansson's got horrible striking. He just hits so hard. And Weidman, obviously, with the wrestling, he's going for the takedowns. If Hermansson gets top control, reverses, takedown, he could peek out, he could switch, anything to turn over the takedown. You've got to worry then. If you're Chris Weidman, Hermansson's top game, he's heavy on top, hits wicked ground and pound. He's not easy to handle. And I think Hermansson has got lovely little long striking, which is awkward for Chris Weidman. Yeah, and you've got to question Chris Weidman's chin, haven't you? You really have to. The way you can take punches is not the same way you could take a punch a while ago. I think Hermansson is far more durable. Weidman now cutting down again. I just want to see Weidman maybe have a little bit of a break, maybe 8 months out. If he wants to do 205, maybe take a year out to get the bulk on, get the 205 frame in. Because he's probably got the issue we had with going up to 205 was he had the 185 frame, and he needs to build up the 205 frame if he's going to go and stay up there. You can't go up and down and think it's okay because they're not going to give you small fry in the light heavyweight division. Chris Weidman, the former champ, the UFC are going to use you to promote and push upcoming fighters in the 205 division. So like your Reyes, your Rakitic, those kind of guys that are coming up through the rankings. To an extent, you could say Krylovs and stuff like that, who are coming up in the light heavyweight divisions, the fresh bloods. They would use Chris Weidman as a kind of feather in their cap because they're more suitable fights. I think Jacare's going back down to 185 as well. So, maybe the 195 division would have been ideal for Jacare, Weidman, and Rockhold. Look at Rockhold as well. That didn't go too well for him at 205. He started getting cocky talking about John Jones, and it backfired because he always looks too far ahead rather than what's in front of him. But people who joined in again, just a quick recap, talking about the UFC cancelling the events. Love to hear your thoughts on this, about whether the UFC should maybe pay the fighters, at least pay the kind of base salary to cover their costs of fight camps, etc. Obviously, if you're like a Tyron Woodley and you're on hundreds of thousands, maybe 100,000 or maybe a part of that discretionary check, so to speak. If you've got any fighter interviews you'd love me to go and do, again, if you've got any fighters, referees, judges, etc., anything, promoters, all that good stuff, put them in there. By the way, they better speak English because I don't speak any other languages fluently. I can do a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but I can't speak fluent. So I definitely need to be English speaking. I actually had Nicholas Dalby lined up to interview, and UFC got cancelled. So that was meant to happen this week. Me and Nicholas were going to do a quick interview before he came over to London. So that's all went up a bit tits wrong. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I'd love to hear your thoughts on all this. I will do more live streams. Possibly I'll do another one this week as well. Just keep the content going. Keep us all perked up with perked up with MMA. Perk us up with some MMA chat, fantasy matchups, potential future matchups, or any kind of prediction stuff, or just anything in general. I love talking MMA. I love talking fights. I could talk for days and years and months and seconds and everything you can imagine, eons about MMA and the potential of it. So, look, I'm going to end this live chat now, folks. Thank you, each and every single one of you joined in. Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. I will be back during the week, and thank you all, one and all, for joining in this week. I love you all. Thank you so much.